Okay. This is the project review board meeting for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. The first item on our agenda is an information exchange, and I'll turn it over to Caroline.
Sure. So thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. This is our first hybrid meeting as the project review board. So just bear with us as we work through this transition. We have two board members on Zoom who couldn't be here in person tonight. We have 3 board members in the meeting room. We have a vacancy and we have 1 person excused. Just for the board, just so everyone in Zoom land can hear us, mics are super important. Any members of the audience will need to make sure they go to the podium because the public definitely can't hear you from the audience, as I learned last night. And then we're back to doing roll call votes tonight on any action you take because we do have some audience members, board members on Zoom. We don't have any staff approvals. Planning board agenda items. The planning board had been busy. They had recommended some provisions to outdoor seating that the council had approved, subject to staff approval and exempt from design review. They amended the standards for temporary activities and they amended the standards for food trucks. Last month, they did hold a joint workshop with the town council. We talked about their work plan for the coming year, including next steps for cannabis, because the council had given the planning board some directive. We talked about the comp plan update. We revisited the idea of updating and looking at the overlays in design review, noting that really that project would be a ways out because we wouldn't want to take that on until we get through the downtown visioning process. So that's an update on that. And then finally, the downtown vision. Design week is coming. I've been talking about it for months and it's finally here. So as we've had to do all along with the downtown vision, we have adapted our plans yet again. So everyone that's in the room tonight has a flyer in front of them. It kind of gives you the plan for design week. It starts with the kickoff workshop on February 3rd. It's going to be at the high school cafeteria due to the room. We have some people that want to do in person and some people that want to do virtual. That will be a hybrid event, so you can choose to come in person or you can do on Zoom. If you look at the sheet in front of you, which has a bunch of, oh, sorry, you can't see it on Zoom land. You should have gotten this via email to the board members. All the blue boxes are workshop sessions for specific topics such as housing, sustainability, design standards. Those are going to be entirely virtual events. There will be an outdoor planning open house tentatively on the 5th. We are in Maine. It might be cold. It will be a bundle up event. If it's too cold or the weather's inclement, we might not be able to pull that off, but that'll be a way to come outside and see some of the boards that the team has designed. And then part of what Principal Group does is they come to Freeport for the week and they're here and they make themselves available to the public. Normally it's an open doors, you can go by all week, but due to COVID, they will be allowing you in, but we'll have appointment only and those will roll out that first week of February if you want to sign up. And then finally, the week will end on Monday the 7th with a closing workshop, a presentation by principal. That will be at the Freeport Performing Arts Center. Again, that's a hybrid event. So we hope that the public and the board can join us. You can scan the QR code on the flyer to get to the sign-up page. You can visit the Freeport Downtown website, or if you don't use a computer, stop by Town Hall or give me a call or see Cecilia and we'll get you taken care of. So that's what's going on.
Great. Thank you, Caroline. The next item on our agenda is a review of minutes from July, September, and October. So we'll start with July. Are there any corrections that need to be made? Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Do I need a roll call vote the motion?
You will once it's seconded.
Okay.
This is for the
Got it.
July, I can't.
This is July, and this is, yep.
Somebody else.
All right, so moved by Todd, seconded
I'll second.
by,
Okay, so if one of the board members on Zoom wants to second, raise your hand and I will turn the speaker on here so we can hear you.
Yep, I will second that.
Okay, thank you, Geraldine. I will do a roll call vote. Berger?
Aye.
Thank you. Blanchard, yes. Campanelli?
Yes.
And Yankee.
Yes.
All right, so that's unanimous, and those have been approved. The next set of minutes are...
Adam abstained.
Abstain.
Yes, sorry. The next set of minutes is from September. Are there any corrections that need to be made to these minutes? Okay, is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I move we approve the minutes as read and written.
Okay,
And second?
okay, a roll call vote. Let's see, Berger, abstain. Blanchard, yes. Campanelli?
Yes.
Troidel?
Yes.
Yankee?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. The next set of minutes is from October. Are there any corrections that need to be made to those minutes? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the October minutes?
I move that we approve the October minutes as written and read.
Thank you. Is it seconded?
Second?
Seconded. Okay, roll call vote. Berger?
Yes.
Blanchard, abstain. Campanelli?
Yes.
Troidel?
Yes.
Yankee?
Yes.
Okay, and those are approved. Thank you.
I just want to note the minutes from last month were not on the agenda because you didn't have a quorum here tonight, so those will be on the next meeting agenda
Gotcha.
for consideration.
Okay. The next item on our agenda tonight are the reviews, and are we starting with these?
The applicant is here.
Okay, so the first item is the Desert of Maine site plan amendment. And I will turn it over to Caroline for a brief summary.
Sure, so the applicant was before you a couple months ago. We didn't hold a last meeting in December because we didn't have a quorum. And they are back here today. The plans haven't changed a ton. There were some changes to the stormwater. They worked out the final details with Adam. The uses are pretty much the same. The one thing that's changed or been added, the septic designs, they've worked those out, those are shown, but the board had asked for some additional information. Thank you. Sorry, guys, on Zoom land. The board had asked for some additional information regarding traffic circulation and the business operations so they could better understand the different uses together. So the applicant had prepared that. Other than the change to the stormwater sheet, the plans in front of you haven't changed since the last time, but Doug is here if the board has questions, and Tom Emery, the representative, is online to also answer questions for the board.
Caroline?
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Should we start with those in the room?
Okay, we're going to start with those in the room.
I don't think they can hear me. Hello? I can hear.
Caroline?
Yeah, we're going to start with people in the room. You have a question first?
I have to recuse myself.
Okay. All right, Geraldine is going to recuse, but will rejoin us when we're done this item. So you can go ahead and darken your screen, Geraldine. Okay, you guys are good to go.
Okay. Comments or questions from those in the room?
Don't believe I have any questions. I think the site walk was really helpful that we did, so thanks for that. I'll just say that I think the parking information made sense that you put together and the times and, there was a lot of work put into that, so.
I have a comment.
Should we open it up to the Zoom attendees?
You want to open it up to
To
the
Linda?
board members on Zoom?
Yep, to board members, yep.
Okay, Linda, we just have a delay. Okay, Linda?
I have just one quickie question. As far as the parking numbers, is there someone that's going to be moderating that during the seasons to make sure that they don't overextend what they say they're going to do?
Is that a question for me, Linda?
I don't know who should answer. I'm not sure. I don't see you.
I mean, I don't know if you mean someone from the desert of Maine or if you mean someone from, you know, the town or something like that. You mean someone from the desert of Maine?
I don't know who would be involved in checking on that, but I guess ultimately the town should be able to check every once in a while.
Yeah, I can comment on that. You know, they have to build what they get approval for on their site plan, and that's what they are going to have to adhere to. Thank you, Todd.
I didn't see the light.
But yeah, I think, you know, the neighbors are gonna be the biggest observer. I think if there's traffic problems or people parking on the street, that we're gonna get calls and need to address it. Did that answer your question, Linda?
I hope so. We'll see.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, any other questions from board members? Comments? Okay. Yep. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Please raise your hand on Zoom, I assume, because there's nobody here in the room.
We have a member of the public in the room. If they wish to speak, we can let them go first. And then we have a couple members of the public on Zoom. In addition, I just wanted to note that you did get some letters from the public that were included in your packet as well. If anyone in Zoom land wants to speak, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll invite you over to share your comments on the application before the board. We do not have any takers.
Okay. If there are no additional comments or questions, then I will entertain a motion, and we're going to have to read the proposed motion in its entirety.
And I realize I do not have a printed staff report in front of me, so I can't do. Oh, thanks, God.
I can do it.
Trying to get to it.
There.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I need to read the whole thing?
Please, yeah.
Okay. All right. Be it ordered that the Freeport Project Review Board approve the printed findings of fact and site plan amendment for the Hested Family Holding LLC for a site plan amendment with changes to include adding guest cabins, restoring and repurposing the Tuttle Barn to be used as a performance venue, adding a farmhouse which will be used as a museum, changes to the previously approved stormwater management plans, after the fact approval for a maintenance shed and garage, and other associated site improvements at the Desert of Maine Tax Assessor Map 12, Lot 8, to be substantially as proposed, to be built substantially as proposed, plan set dated October 27, 2021, with sheet C 60-1 revised through December 22nd, 2021, finding that it meets the standards of the Freeport zoning ordinance with the following conditions of approval. 1, this approval incorporates by reference all supporting plans that amend the previously approved plans submitted by the applicant and their representatives at project review board meetings. and hearings on the subject application to the extent that they are not in conflict with other stated conditions. 2, prior to any site work associated with this approval and prior to the issuance of any building permits, the applicant do the following. A, establish a performance guarantee in the amount to cover the cost of all site work associated with the project in the to be reviewed and approved by,
Should be amount, in the amount.
in the amount to be approved by, in the amount to be reviewed and approved by the town engineer and in a form acceptable to the town attorney. The performance guarantee shall cover the cost of all site work, including but not limited to erosion control, damage, drainage, landscaping and walkways, parking areas, etc., along with the performance guarantee, a non-refundable administrative fee at the rate established by the Freeport Town Council to be paid. B, establish an escrow account in the amount of to be determined to cover the cost of plan review and inspections of the site improvements by the town engineer. C, the developer have a pre-construction meeting with the town engineer. D, the applicant enter into a new maintenance agreement for a stormwater maintenance management system with the town of Freeport to be recorded in the Cumberland County Registry of Deeds.
All right, thank you, Todd. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Adam. Roll call vote. Berger?
Yes.
Blanchard, yes. Troidel?
Yes?
Yankee?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you.
So I have 4 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 recusal.
All right, the next item on our agenda tonight is the Route 1 Freeport Solar Ground-Mounted Solar Facility Site Plan Approval. And turn it back over to Caroline for a brief explanation of that project.
Sure. So the solar panel was also here before you a few months ago. And then the board had a site walk. When we went on the site walk, we had learned that the plans had changed some, that due to changes in state regulations, they weren't going to be building a system as big, so they had reduced the size of the system. We also saw a drainage swale, which, you know, was looked at, wondering the status, if it was a stream or just drainage. And there were some wet areas noted, I think, pointed out by some of the abutters. So the applicant did do some additional due diligence. There was some information included in their narrative, and they did shrink their plans a little bit further. Some wetland areas are noted on the plan now that they are trying to stay out of, and they're also trying to stay out of that drainage swale. Sean Toby from Hoyle Tanner, the representative, is here on Zoom tonight and is prepared to share plans. And we do have some members of the public still participating, and we do have some members in the audience. So
Okay.
do you want to turn it over to Sean, or do you guys want to do questions first? Or
Yeah, I think we'll turn it over to Sean and let him present anything he'd like to, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, just so you know, if we're doing a lot of back and forth, we'll have a little bit of delay. So once Sean's done, I'll turn the speaker volume down. You can ask the questions, and then Sean, just give it a second or two before you respond so we can get the sound going here. You should be able to share your screen.
Is that showing up for everybody? Just wanted to check. Okay. All right, so good evening, everybody. Sean Toby with Hoyle Tanner. Also here is Sean Meehan, just if there's any questions from the solar side. So like Caroline had mentioned, since the last meeting back in November, we had put a plan before you. It was a 5.8 megawatt project, but since then, the state program has reduced the allowable connection into the street. So essentially, we've cut down the power output and size of the facility down to a 3 megawatt DC, which is a 2 megawatt AC connection into the grid. That's the maximum that's allowed right now per the state. So that's why the project shrunk we've taken it basically within the original footprint that we had done, and we kind of shrunk everything down into the center. And then we also kind of took some advantages of that reduced size to kind of make it more efficient. We set the panel rows a little further apart to prevent any shading. And we pulled the panels away from any of the areas that were really steep slopes. So this here is the current layout. I know we didn't really have this printed and available. I mean, we had hard copies at the site walk, but we didn't really have this circulated. And what I can do here is I can kind of show the two layouts side by side, where this was the previous plan on the left and the one on the right is where we are now. So as you can see in the old one, we were really fighting to get the full 5 megawatts of panels in here in the beginning. You know, this was pretty tight lot line to lot line and going over some of the steep slopes. And you can see all this is the panels here. On the revised one, the panels are pulled back from a lot of these sidelines and setbacks, spaced out a little bit more. There's some clearing, but overall a much less impact than we originally had. And then as Caroline had mentioned on the site walk, when we got up into the northern section, there was an area where there was water flowing through. You know, this time of year, there's been a lot of rain and groundwater. So that area in question, we immediately went back out there with the wetland scientist on December 23rd. And he again observed this area and deemed it not to be a jurisdictional wetland. It doesn't meet the criteria. It has the flowing water, but it doesn't have hydric soils and it doesn't have wetland vegetation, which are components needed to be deemed jurisdictional in a wetland. So it's classified as a non-jurisdictional drainage swale. And we did go back and pull the panels in this area west a little bit, just so we're not impacting any of that or changing any of that natural flow. So we're completely out of that with any panels or fencing. And then as Caroline had mentioned, we went back and walked the entire site. It had been a year since he flagged the wetlands, and we revisited everything just as a double check. And there were 2 small pockets, as you can kind of see up in this area. There's a little pocket of wetland here that then kind of goes off site. And there's a small little pocket that's deemed wetlands right there, that we took this area, pulled everything further this way, and our fence skirts around that wetland and again is pulled out of that wetland there. So we're not having any panels or fencing in those areas. And then we also met with Doug Leland and Andy Spalding from the Casco Bay Trail Alliance. And that was something that they had really asked us to look at the November meeting about possibly getting an easement through there. And there is this section through here in this green highlighted area, or now yellow here, that the applicant's willing to give an easement through to provide a future trail system as part of this project. You know, should that go north and south, MBD Solar has been more than accommodating to want to help this process and have that part be a good part of the community. And so other than that, those are kind of the major changes. It's just gotten smaller. And next step, you know, if we get any feedback here, we'll work that in, and then we'll do a full formal submittal back to the board for site plan review. We'll have drainage calcs, a stamped drainage report. We'll make sure we accommodate any runoff with ponds or swales or any type of devices to slow and treat the stormwater, and come back with a full finalized design to put before the board. And at this point, I can just turn it back over to any questions, and we'll be more than happy to walk through anything.
Thank you. Should we start with those on Zoom? Is that easier for you?
The board, yeah, it's easier, well, if we do one or the other.
Okay. So any of the board members on Zoom, if you have questions or comments, please raise your hand. Go ahead.
You want to, Linda, you want to go first?
Did you say me first?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear you. I have a number of concerns, and part of those concerns, I have a number of specific questions to ask. I'm going to probably ask for Caroline to give me a little bit of help in this also, because going back and forth between the ordinance and the definitions and some of the requirements. So I just want to make sure that I understand things. So when I'm asking you the questions, maybe Carolyn will jump in and help out at the time. So in general, my concerns generally are about the amount of clear cutting of the property. I understand you obviously have to cut to get the solar coming through and the panels get put in. So that is one question I have. I'll give you specifics in a bit. I do have a question also on the building setback line that you have on your plans. Under your legend, you have a delineation for building setback. So when you had your original plan before, that line was very close to the physical property lines. Now that you've cut back on your solar arrays, this building setback line is still, in most cases, not all of them, close to that same location that it was. So some of these questions, what I'm kind of getting at is what you showed us before in the larger plan, and now what you're showing us now in the cutback plan, there are items that don't seem to have changed much. And so that is one of my concerns. I also have a question on the, when you have the proposed tree line on these plans, this is the same situation. You had a tree line, proposed tree line, pretty much at the end, the edges of the border of the property, almost contiguous with your fencing. And now the fencing and the panels have moved inside, further inside based on your cutting it back, but you still have the proposed tree line all almost totally at the outer borders of the property. And my question will be on that one is, does that tree line, the way you describe it and think about it, mean anything inside the property from that drawn tree line, mean that you can do a clear cut of anything from the tree line within to the inside of the property? Because that is, I have some concerns about that. I also have a question about the standards, talk about having native pollinator seed mixes, and you don't specifically say that in your construction sequences. You talk about native topsoil and low height grass mix. I really believe in your notations, there should be the specific words that really conform to our regulations. What you have here, I assume, is pretty much boilerplate wording, and I would like to see what's written on your plans to be the actual wording that we require. So those were my general concerns. If you want to me to ask you the specifics, I can go ahead and do that. Carolyn, I would really love if you could explain the definition of solar array development area that's in the ordinance, section 104, and how that relates to the standards that are in section 534. Because it's a little confusing to me. There's some differences in what's a building setback line and what can be included. So that might help me in understanding this.
Yeah, I can probably start, and then if you want to defer to Caroline and some of the questions we can. The first question about the building setbacks shown on the plan. So anything that's a structure, we're treating the panels, the inverters, any of the electrical equipment, those as structures as if it's a house or a residence that needs to be set back a set amount from the property line. And on the first plan, we had showed the standard setbacks for the commercial zone. But as part of the solar ordinance, there's greater setbacks from the property lines than the standards as if it was a building. So that was something that we had noticed and revised on this plan to show those greater setbacks all the way around for the panels than what we had originally done for that zone as if it was a building. So that's why those setback lines have adjusted on the plans and as well in the legend from the first go around. The next question about the tree clearing is under the first design, we were really trying to maximize the panel layout and get as many panels in there. And we didn't really have enough adequate tree clearing to support that original system. So there were panels within that that would have been shaded during the day, but we were trying to get those extra panels in there, even though it was a benefit. So with the revised design, we've kept the tree cutting line as to where it is, but moved the panels in to ensure that those panels will be maximized from the sun all day long. So there shouldn't be any shading on those panels. And then any area between where the tree line will be cut and the fence, that'll be cut, but it won't ever be stumped. We'll leave those stumps in place. Little saplings can grow back up, and it'll be cut back down every once in a while, but it won't be completely clear cut, stumped, removed. It's just the intent of that clearing between the fence and the tree line is to not have anything that's shading the panels. Inside the fence, those stumps will be removed and it'll be turned over to a meadow grass mix. And, you know, with the clearing, I think on this site, we're at about 14.5 acres of clearing. And there's a lot of good studies that show, even though we're cutting the trees, we're still replacing that back with a dense meadow grass mix in that area. So the offsets between trees versus the grass, it's not a substantial difference. And then there's also some good data that I could provide that shows from the EPA, you know, over the life of this system, what this will reduce in carbon and certain offsets that could be done with this system versus if that remains trees. There's some good information that we can provide that's helpful. And then the other question about the seed mix, we'd be more than happy to specify any type of mix, you know, specific to Freeport. The inside that field, it does get knocked down, mowed twice per year, just to keep everything from out of the panels. But during those months in between, you know, whether it's a certain type of wildflower mix or seed mix or pollen, you know, different flowers or any of that, we'd be more than happy to accommodate that. And I think the last question was just about the solar array development area. And that, per Freeport standards, is any solar panels and then the area in between the solar panel rows. So if you basically drew a line around all the panels and just kind of made a big polyline around them, that's the area that, per the solar ordinance, that is considered solar development array area. So our total solar development array area is 6.9 acres for the project. And I believe in the zone, it's allowed up to 15 acres, but with the rule changes with the state, we just really, you would have so many panels, it'd be way too much for what's allowed at the connection at the street now. And I think I covered anything. If I missed anything, I could go back into it.
I just want to follow up on one or two of those things right now. When you talk about the different cutting inside the fence line and outside it up till your proposed tree cutting line, I would like to see those things specifically stated on your plan set as different methods. Right now, no one would be able to hold you to one or the other. And I would like to see them delineated properly on the notation, you know, on all of your plans, as well as the native pollinator seeds. You know, whatever, like what I'm saying is, I know that it's typical to put, you know, typical language on these plans in the notes and construction sequences, but I'd like it to be what it is going to be, what you're explaining, and what's going to be approved. And that should be the correct wording on there.
Okay, yeah, we can graphically depict the clearing as well as include it in the notes. You know, we can hatch it a different shape or a different pattern and say, you know, just clearing only, no stumping, and make sure that's very clear on the plan so there's no confusion. Okay,
I hate to take up a lot of the time, but I have just specifically to some of what I was saying on the plans where you have the two wetland areas. I was wondering, I have my own notes here. I got to go back and read this. Where it says in the wetlands that you're going to cut the vegetation in the wetlands. I don't understand why you would need to do that. And if, you know, the fence line is on the array side, not the other side. So I'm not sure why you would need to be doing cutting of wetlands. It shouldn't be tree top height to cause, I wouldn't believe it's anything that's going to cause, you know, deflection of your solar panels, but you know better than I do. But you know, if you could address that. And then the other related to cutting, in addition, on the plans on the east side where it's abutting, I guess, lot 23-42, that area is very, very steep. Your fence line goes to the west of that steepness, but you still have your tree cutting line, as I said before, almost running along your property boundaries. I don't really understand the benefit of cutting on such steep areas to the extent that it would be shown on here. And I'm concerned about erosion control and any stumps or anything that you're going to pull out. I know you'd still need to do your erosion plans and stormwater plans, but I would rather see some of this not on the cutting side. I would rather see that cutting line closer to your fence lines.
Okay, yeah, just to explain a little bit with the wetlands, you know, if there, and we can depict that more, that the intent isn't to clear cut it right down to the ground. It's just if there's any larger trees in that area that are shading the panels, to cut those, but leave any low-lying vegetation. So we can depict that better on the plan. And then the other portion and related to the tree cutting up to the top of that hill, in this area, because the sun is coming around from the south and that hill is so much higher than the panels themselves, those trees we have to cut to the top of that hill in order to get that shading relief. Otherwise, with the natural terrain and then the height of the trees themselves, the sun will be shading a good portion of that hillside there. So we would cut the trees to the top of the hill, but again, that's an area where all the stumps would remain. Likely, you know, most likely that would be 3, 4, 5 foot high scrub vegetation. You know, the intent isn't to go in and just rip everything out of there and take it right down. It's just to prevent any shading. So any of those areas that are steeper or are cut, you know, on our next plan, we'll show erosion control. We'll use erosion control matting in any areas that are steeper of concern.
And you're not, and you said, I believe you're not going to pull the stumps on those steep areas.
No, we would leave those stumps in, and then likely saplings would grow up. So those roots would maintain the strength of that slope.
Okay, I think that clears up some of my questions. I just, you know, as I said, I love to see it properly recorded on the plans.
Yep, and we will make sure of that.
Thank you.
Geraldine?
Hey, Geraldine, you want to go next?
Are you ready for me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I did have some erosion control, but it sounds like you'll be handling that in the next submission, and you've covered some of that. You know, I read that in one of the reports that these panels last 20 to 25 years. What happens, first of all, what happens to the panel? How is that disposed? And then is that 25 years part of the decommissioning, or are you just anticipating replacing those panels?
Yeah, so good question. The panels have about a 25-year life. As they, you know, start to decline. After 25, they need to be replaced. The racking systems that hold the panels, you know, the screws into the ground and the mounting pieces, those have a 50-year life. So after 25, those panels would be removed. And a lot of those they get recycled because they have glass and the metal, and it all gets stripped out and pulled apart, and those individual pieces will be recycled. And then all the racking system will be repurposed with new panels for another 25 years to take it to the end of that 50. And so in our decommissioning estimate, we account for that, for cost to remove the panels, to take them away, recycle them, remove the racking system, and then it has an escalation cost on it. So for some reason, if 23 years into this, everybody walked away, the town could pull that bond with the escalation on it, you know, recycle the panels, take them away, take away the racking, and restore the site right back to a, you know, an existing site. So that's kind of the life cycle of that, as well as the bond is kind of like a safety net for the town should anything happen.
Okay, thank you. Makes sense. And as a former member of Active Living in Complete Streets, I'm very excited about the 15-foot easement across the property. This is kind of a long thought plan, and didn't seem like it would ever come to fruition, but as this being the first property in that, maybe it will be a catalyst for more properties to contribute to this. And I think it meets the requirement for 527, absolutely. So that's great. I'm glad you guys are doing it. So thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Geraldine and Linda. Any comments or questions from those in the boardroom? Yeah.
I had a couple questions. I wasn't able to make the site walk, unfortunately. I was looking forward to it. And so I'm curious from the site walk what observations other board members had, if that's can be shared, as well as any concerns perhaps that abutters perhaps had made during the site walk.
Sure. So with regard to abutters, and I assume that we've got some that have zoomed in or potentially present in the room, but one of the comments was, you know, the road that's up above the proposed project area, just whether or not they could see the project once it's completed from their houses, and what is the clearing of the trees going to do with regard to noise, especially coming from Route 1 and 295. Yeah, and, you know, when we were in there, we observed the noise of the highway, you know, and it was, you know, it's winter, you know, so that we're in leaf drop conditions. So, you know, and it wasn't necessarily quiet, I would say. So it was, I mean, the noise is there already. So I'm not sure that necessarily clearing the space is going to make a huge difference as far as noise. I'm sure it will, but as far as like a perceptible difference, I'm not sure it's going to be huge. And that was sort of what I took away from the site walk. What else? Just observations on the site. I mean, I think this is a difficult site for development in general. So I think it's good that it is being developed and being used in this way. It does kind of have a plateau to it at the center, and that's where the panels are going to be installed. So you can see on the plans, obviously, the topography lines and see those steep slope areas. But, you know, from walking the site, it does make sense that this is where the panels would be installed, and these are clearly areas sort of out of bounds that would remain vegetated. I don't know, Adam, do you have any additional?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, I think for all the development that could be allowed in here, I think this is a pretty good use of the land. And it is, that trail is really nice. It's basically already there, so that's a good feature for the town and the neighbors. And then, like Guy said, you know, there definitely were some steep slopes we climbed up, but you know, in general, I think things lay out fairly well.
Do Linda or Geraldine have any observations from the site walk that you might be able to share as well? Okay. Thank you.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I pretty much agree with what's already been said.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, my concerns initially were about the visual impact from both directions, from the residents as well as from Route 1 looking up as well. And also from a noise perspective as well. You know, taking those trees down, and yes, everything is frozen and the leaves are off the trees right now. But my concern was, and I think I had mentioned this before, is about how lack of trees, A, and then we don't have that buffer there anymore for not only the residents, but the rest of everybody from 295 basically to the water, because we hear it on Wolf's Neck Road, the ambient traffic, as well as the reflectivity of the panels themselves, because they're not absorbent. They're going to reflect any sound that's going to come off of them. So that was a concern that I had, and so that was one. The second one is, if I remember right, and I may be wrong, is from the original presentation or submittal, wasn't there a phased approach to this, phase 1, and then there was a phase 2 perhaps in the back? Is that correct? And if that is correct, are we still looking at phased, especially since now this is a cutback submittal? Is there potential for another phase?
Do we want to
This is for the applicant?
This is for the applicant or Caroline?
I'll let Sean, hold on, I'm gonna let you respond to that.
Okay, yeah, so there's two different sections of panels that are kind of split by the access road to the water tower, but the project wouldn't be constructed in a phased approach. It would just be one series of, construction, and then there wouldn't be any future expansion. There's just not any additional space.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We can open it up to the public.
You have Linda that has a question.
Oh, Linda, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm looking left and right, and
I just wanted to add to, I guess it was Todd's comments about the noise and everything coming from cutting back. It goes along with my concern. I am still concerned a bit about the extent of what could be clear cutting. I would really appreciate it if you could look at the entire design and see that you could move in some of that cutting boundary in the next go around, just to at least give it a little more buffering, particularly on the side where all the houses are already. But just in general, for erosion control, I think it's going to be a really big problem of controlling it when you're cutting all those trees. Obviously, under the panel areas, you're going to have to grub and take out stumps, but I think you're going to have a lot of work to do on erosion control. So maybe at the areas on the steepness and just along that whole eastern side, there's just a lot of area that maybe you could consider cutting back where your cutting line is.
Okay, yeah, I think we can definitely revisit that. And then also thinking just kind of from the site walk and being out there as well, I think we could infill on the western edge with different plantings, maybe spruce trees or lower vegetation to help absorb some of that sound. Because right now it's a lot of taller trees, and for the first 0 to 50 feet, it's just kind of tree trunks. So I think if we could infill with different vegetation, that might help absorb some of that sound coming up over the hill in the winter months. I think to maybe better that as well. So we can look at that as well as reducing some of the tree clearing limits.
Thanks.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay, do any members of the public wish to speak? I'll start with the council chambers.
Good evening, Doug Leland, Cushing Bridge Road in Freeport. I'm just here to, well, as you know from the last meeting, we had agreed to get together with the applicant and do our own site walk, which we did just in advance of yours. And I just want to thank Sean and the applicant for that site walk. They were very open to our requests. very generous in their response. On behalf of the Complete Streets Committee and Freeport Connect and the Casco Bay Trail Alliance, this is a big deal regarding this trail. Some segments of trails are more significant than others. This was a critical segment for the trail that we're trying to build from Yarmouth into Freeport, which actually will be Portland into Freeport. It has great economic significance for the town, as well as recreational opportunities for the people in town. And this particular piece was a critical piece, and I really, on behalf of the three organizations I represent, very appreciative of the applicants' generosity and support in coming forward with this trail option.
Thanks. Any members of the public on Zoom that wish to speak, please raise your hand and let Caroline know.
I don't see any hands raised.
Hands, okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, I think then we are all set. There's nothing to vote on for this particular item tonight.
Yeah, so I can just cover next steps for you.
Sure.
It's site plan. We quite often see site plans in 2 steps due to, having the site walk and hearing that their plans had changed and some of the questions that came up, and they were doing a little more due diligence. I thought it'd be appropriate for them to come back and check in. I don't think you'll see them back until they have their final submission. They need to have a pre-application meeting with Adam Bliss regarding stormwater. They need to do the engineering. They'll need to get the draft language done for the easement, and then they have a lot of other conditions under the new solar regulations that they need to comply with, so they'll pull that together before you see them back on another agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you, Caroline. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is item 4, review of the meeting schedule for 2022.
So you all had a 2022 meeting schedule in your packet. We do have a couple board members that their terms are expiring at the end of March, so we might see some turnover. But it's good to get a schedule set in advance to the greatest extent possible. If we run into quorum issues, which we hopefully won't, we could table or cancel. I know we do have one board member. We are currently, so let me back up one step. An appointment was made last night, so we will soon have a full board. So I expect next month we'll probably have our new board member here. Sometimes they like to watch, sometimes they like to dive right in. But we do have another board member that can't make it next month. So does anyone else have a conflict? I believe the 16th is school vacation week. We do have a couple people that I think were interested in coming to the board. But if people can't be here that week, we could look at an alternate meeting date.
I'm on vacation the week before, so I wouldn't be able to do that, but I can do the scheduled meeting on the 16th.
Works for me.
Anyone on Zoom have a problem? You can raise your hand and we'll turn you on. Nope. We also have Geraldine has a conflict in June. I have a conflict in July. Usually you guys take a summer month off. I didn't know if sometimes we take August. I didn't know if you maybe want to take July off. If not, we could find somebody else to staff you for that meeting. Oh, Linda has a...
Yeah, I guess switch it over.
Hey, Linda, we're going to turn you on.
Okay, I just looked again. June 15th is the day after my anniversary. We usually go away. August 17th is my husband's birthday. We usually do something. So I'm not saying now I can't, but, consider me an iffy.
Noted. Did we have any other conflicts?
No, I'm fine with those days. As far as I know.
Not up to now.
I
We're
mean,
boring people. We don't-
yeah, like, I have no life.
So everybody is committed to being here.
That's right. We're taking
Days.
attendance.
So did you guys want to still try to meet in July and we can try to have somebody fill in?
I would say can we cross that bridge when we get closer because people's schedules may.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can. You want to maybe, I'll flag this to revisit it in May, and then
Okay.
we'll set it for the remainder of the year, because that's a good idea, Todd, because we will have some new board members, and, things are
Yeah.
changing on a daily basis. Geraldine, did you have a hand raise, or was that just a pen? Okay. So I'll note to revisit in May on there.
Great.
Okay.
Does that cover the meeting schedule discussion?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think so.
the next item on our agenda, item 5, persons wishing to address the board on non-agenda items.
Okay, can I have permission to turn?
Yeah,
Okay, Geraldine.
I have a question about, our council meeting, our meeting with the council. Did that get dropped or? Can you hear
Did
me?
not get dropped. I think I just saw that come through.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I was gonna tell Chris that you did want to meet with them. I was also gonna see if you guys could have a little more time, since I know the planning board's not gonna need to meet with them, because they did their workshop. Does everybody still want to meet with the council, I'm assuming?
yeah, oh, yeah.
I can send the board some dates. I know you and Adam met with them a while back. I can send you the dates that they offered, and then on the next agenda, I can put an agenda item so we can kind of make a list of what we want to talk about with them.
Did we just drop this or, this has been going on for a few months, so I didn't know what happened in this time.
Sorry, the volume. I think we had planned to meet, and then we hit a lull, we hit elections, we hit COVID, and then each board was trying to do their own. So now we're fitting you into the workshop schedule with them.
So this is gonna be a workshop again then?
Sorry, I have to turn you on, the volume on and off. Can you start again?
Is this going back to the so-called workshop in front of the council? Is that what this would be?
The intent for now was to get you into the workshop schedule. If you want to try a workshop on a different night, we can try that. Again, I was going to see if you could use the time that was allocated to the planning board, but open for suggestions.
Several months ago, we were supposed to meet with them for 2 hours, I thought.
Yeah, that's still the intent of the board. If you feel like
Is this
you need a separate designated time, I can pursue that and see if we can get that onto the schedule.
But that was a discussion that came
I-
up after the workshop. If I recall, the council wanted to meet with the board and discuss some of the issues in more detail.
Yeah, and we were supposed to include the planning board in that
Right,
conversation too, right? Wasn't that?
right.
So I think we had always intended that we'd do both, and then they, under former council leadership, they had offered 2 hours with each individual board. Just got the planning board one done. We haven't done project review, so I thought maybe we'd meet independently to each talk about your own separate issues,
Yeah.
and then we could talk together. Whether or not you want to, I think some of your issues are going to tie into the village, so some of them, if we were going to meet jointly, it might make sense to do it after the vision, but that's a ways out. I think it would be good to get stuff on the radar, but if you don't feel that hour is enough time, we can try to see if we can get more time.
I would say I think there's issues on both ends of that, but it's definitely going to change with whatever comes out of the vision process and how whoever wants to adopt. We're not a board that adopts things and makes rules. We make decisions. So whether it's the council or the planning board, they're gonna be the ones that are, you know, putting that into action, but I think we all have expressed an interest of wanting to A, be involved, but B, to be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that we have now, and, you know, so there's certain improvements that we could make regardless of the downtown vision process. But I think whatever happens with downtown vision and how, you know, that's gonna come forward is something that the council and the planning board and the project review board should meet and talk about, whether with principal or not, just because there's gonna need to be new ordinances or revisions to ordinances and all kinds of stuff to make those things that we've at least heard so far, you know, become possible. And if those are done in a vacuum by any one of those groups, then it's going to end up with, and we're at the end of the train, so we always get the thing last when it's a project that's already had a zoning change and a contract zone and, you know, everything else that's happened, and the public somehow has not heard of the steps at the council or the planning board, and then they show up here and, you know, have issues with it. So I think there's kind of both needed, kind of before and after. I don't know if it wouldn't hurt to have the planning board with the council and us, you know, beforehand, but I think it's imperative that after the visioning happens and if there's starting to be action steps thought of, that happens then for sure.
Yeah, and some of this, Sherilyn, was shared when Adam and I met with a couple of town councilors. Caroline was there, and Mary from FEDC. This was this last month? When did we meet?
I don't know, a couple.
So the as part of the downtown
The
visioning,
visioning, right.
we met with some board and committee chairs. The planning board was a planning board chair and vice chair invited, project review board, and Complete Streets. Sustainability. There's been a lot of meetings, but yeah, and then you guys, I can't remember the other time, you and Adam, I remember going to the council on Zoom at some point.
So, I mean, that was about a year ago at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Time.
So pulling this up, I see the council, Chris had sent me an email with dates of February 8th, March 8th, or March 22nd. They're typically only doing 20. Again, I was going to see if we could at least get the other 20 that were allocated to the planning board.
February 8th is a Tuesday. Are you back that week?
Yeah.
I
No,
guess-
that's the week I'm going.
I guess I have two concerns. Concern one is that we have 3 people whose terms are ending. We don't know if they're gonna, I know that Adam is gonna be done. He's served years. I'm not sure about the other 2, and I don't know what the appointments committee will be doing. So at the end of March, we could potentially lose 3 board members. So
Yeah.
I do like, if we can get into their schedule only for a short period of time, even with the current board, because clearly it's
Yeah.
been hard to get 2 hours in with just
Yeah. Yep.
everything going on, and then,
And among ourselves, we've had quorum issues.
yes, and we've had quorum
Speak
issues
of anyone
and waiting
else.
for a full board and all that, so
Right.
there's no good time. I do have concerns if you keep putting it off.
Right. I mean, I think, right, there was an intent to get a full board, and then
Yeah.
that sort of didn't happen. Okay, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we need to, you know, try to meet with them as soon as possible with the existing board.
February doesn't really give you guys time to talk about it as a board, what you want to talk about. Adam, usually like the chair and vice chair, anyone can go, but you will be away. So did you
Right.
want to try for the later? Do you want me to put a request
I mean, I
in for
definitely
the
want
March
Adam there. I mean, I think
22nd?
he has such a good perspective with his years on the project review board, and you always give such thoughtful responses, Adam, and I appreciate that.
Agreed.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think, especially when it comes to ordinances and,
Yep.
Do you want to open it up to comment from our Zoom board members?
Absolutely.
okay. Yes, of course. No comments?
Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, I don't really have much to add at all because I'm not sure what, I think when you had this discussion before, it was in my first 1, 2, or 3 months of being on the board, maybe the first month, and I didn't know what the concerns were, and I'm not 100% sure I know what the concerns are even now, so I'm gonna not say anything else.
Geraldine?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me or not.
you. Can you hear us?
I'm not hearing
We can-
you, so I'm not
We
sure if
can
you're
hear you.
hearing
I'm turning
me.
you back up. So start again.
Can you hear me now?
She can't see you guys.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Honestly, I'm dumbfounded. I just, this has been going on for 3+ years of trying to get together with the council and to do another 20-minute workshop and just go over and say the same things that we've already said. It's really disappointing to me, and I know the vision plan has kind of sucked the life out of everything, which is probably why, you know, the comp plan's not moving forward either, but we're going to get into the same dilemma. I mean, this has been repeated by Freeport so many times that a new plan comes in, it's not thought through, and then, like you said, Adam, we're at the end of that chain, and we get the, which is probably why no one wants to be on the project review board, because we get all the abuse at the end of the whole thing. And council doesn't seem to always understand or at all understand what we do or how those decisions have repercussions for the project review board. So it's very disappointing to me that these meetings have not been planned and that we're back to the dog and pony show, as I call it, in front of the council. So I don't know what to say. I'm just kind of amazed because we've gone over that so many times, what we wanted to talk about with them, and I don't know why it all needs to be revisited again, but I'm always the outspoken one, so that's my feeling on the whole thing. So anyway.
Caroline, you said that if we...
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you and I can't see you guys
Zoom
either. This isn't really working
That if
very
we're, like,
well
workshop-
for a
She's still
good
talking.
discussion. I'm sorry.
I can't figure it out. Are we on? Can I talk?
Okay, sorry, Guy is being challenged by Zoom. The Zoom volume is now turned down, Guy. Now you can talk and everybody can hear you.
If we're workshopping with the council, are we doing it for more than 20 minutes?
I was going to ask for more than,
Yes, like an hour at least.
well, I think if we can't get an hour on that night, then we advocate to get another night.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's, like, Geraldine's saying, there's a lot to cover, there's a lot to discuss, and, when Adam and I did our quick little presentation, that's really all it was, and then we were getting peppered, by some of the counselors with questions, and, that's a much larger discussion to be had, so I think...
And so do you feel like at this point it's really the same topics, just diving more
Absolutely.
further into them?
And it's going to be some of the same stuff that we brought up during our visioning conversation with the two counselors that were there, right? Just concerns that this board has about that process. I mean, there's a lot going on in the town, and it's just making sure all of the town counselors are aware of what the project review board does and the challenges that we face.
Well, the way I got it done for the planning board is, it's hard to fit in the council schedule. They're super busy. They're in the middle of budget season, but we invited them to the planning board meeting. So we could do the same thing with you guys. Like, if a lot of stuff doesn't come in, we could invite them to come to your meeting. We could workshop before and start the meeting later, or workshop at the end. If you guys are open to that, I can talk to Chairperson Pilch and see. That might be an easier way. I'll say, you guys really want more time with them.
Yeah, I'm definitely open to that. I mean, I think trying to, squeeze time here and there is not really working. And, I can make time for that.
We just did it at the January planning board meeting. And so we had virtual, we had a couple people in the room, and we had a counselor on Zoom. I think we had 3 or 4 counselors at least there. So it was pretty good attendance.
Yeah, so I would say to Geraldine that Guy and I brought up a lot of those points when we had that meeting a couple months ago, and I think it was Dan Pilch and John Egan were the two counselors that were there. Yeah. And a lot of this comes down to process. I mean, obviously the ordinance and the issue and the specific thing, needs to be dealt with, but it's a lot about process and both including everyone to be inclusive, but including everyone that has input, that we all have a different role in that process, and we on the project review board see different things than planning does and that the town council does. I think overall it's a really good thing that the planning board and the project review board are split. I would hate to be on the planning board and have to do all of that and all of this, but the problem with that is that it separates the planning board from the actionable results of the ordinances and things that get written. They don't see that at the end unless they watch our meetings, which I'm sure they're all doing now or on video. So I think with downtown visioning especially, that if they don't think about process, that either nothing's ever going to happen or it's going to just kind of run roughshod through things and not get the results that people are after. I certainly expressed that I've attended multiple of those public meetings. Housing downtown seems to be a top issue for a lot of the public, and I totally agree with that, and I haven't heard anyone voice opposition to it. But to get a large residential development in downtown Freeport requires a whole lot of ordinance change, and in the public process, that's going to take months to do. So, I think there needs to be an action plan that, great, we're going to have design week. It's going to be really exciting. And then people are going to summarize the results and come back with that. But if we don't have a process in place to know what we're going to do with that, then it's not going to go anywhere despite the best of intentions, because the process to get it there is going to be too long and hard to do. And especially if we're concerned about downtown and retail and COVID, well, we're 2 years into that, so we probably need to, think about having those action steps other than the small things that have been done, which have been great, and hopefully those continue and, be made more possible. But, to get a decent sized residential development, to boost the retail, to, all of that kind of stuff, there's a lot more that goes into that. So,
and that's something that we, talked about with the counselors. And one of the questions was, so who's following through with the vision plan? Who's implementing it? And then they were sort of like raising their hands that they're going to do it, and then like, well, the boards will have some responsibilities. And I, reminded them that this is a board of volunteers with constant turnover, and that we've got folks rolling off of this board soon. So, we need to really think about how this is going to work, or else it's never going to happen. And we're going to be just like we were for, the last time the town did a visioning plan, and the time before that, and the time before that, right? So, I think these are things that we obviously need to be speaking with the council about.
I think the other thing you guys could add insight to is, like, there's been a lot of conversation about, like, current process and the reputation in Freeport that we have a lot of rules and that it's hard to get things done. And I think that might be some stuff that you could, that's shifting gears a little bit, but current system, some inefficiencies or places you see, like, we could look at loosening standards, and we're not just talking about downtown, just in all of Freeport, or ways to improve it. I think that's something that would be really valuable for the council, because I think, based upon stuff I brought to them, they want to look for opportunities to make us more friendly. And
of course, the more that could be staff approved, for example, would be great for applicants. Don't you think, Caroline?
Depends on what's being presented to the person making that decision.
I think a prescriptive standard that
is
narrows
right.
things down, and if it still needs approval, then it's going to be pretty obvious that.
Yeah. And there was some talk about that, again, with the planning board, but, being realistic, like, I think Geraldine hinted at, we can only do so much, with the two boards, the constant stuff coming in. And so, and then with this vision, it's like, we talked about making a budget request for some potential planning projects, but realistically, if we have our RFP out for a comp plan, we have some other stuff going on. We have the applications that come in. Before we could really even look at the overlay, would realistically probably be later in the fiscal year. And do it the right way that everybody's envisioned, that we've talked about. So, okay.
So
We're going to go back to seeing if we can invite them to one of your meetings, and we'll set it up as a 2-hour invitation.
Okay.
Geraldine? Thumbs up, thumbs down? She gave up.
Oh,
That's it.
Okay. We'll-
Okay. Yeah.
If that can't work with their schedule, I know gets intense in budget season, then worst case, we'll push for one of the workshops. I mean, I think it would be really good to get some time with them before turnover.
I think that's real important.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess I don't know the due process, public process aspect. If I'm not on the board, I would still come to a meeting if somebody invited me to talk to, just to summarize the past 6 years that I've done this and, whatever, since I've been here the longest at this point, but whether that's legal or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
Sure.
public meeting. Anyone can come
Yeah,
share
right.
their opinion, especially if it's a workshop. I mean, this board can choose to take public comment from anybody that comes. So you could definitely participate.
Okay.
Okay.
And if any members of the public are watching, there may be vacancies on the project review board
And the planning board. if
and the planning
people
board,
are-
so please apply if interested.
Yep. People are done on this board. There's plenty of other opportunities. Geraldine is not going to be here in February, so do we want to try for the March meeting for a workshop?
Do we know attendance of everybody for, I would just say whoever, if we can get
Try to get maximum attendance.
maximum
yeah.
number of
Okay.
people, right? Yeah. So either February or March. I would like Geraldine there, though. Obviously. Can she hear me?
She can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she can hear you.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll see what we can get fit with their schedule, and we'll make sure we can get a quorum.
Yep.
I don't think you have a ton of stuff coming in for February, but I'm not sure for March. We do have a couple bigger projects out there that I haven't heard from, so I'm not sure if they'll reappear. I mean, a long agenda is not a great night to tack on a workshop. Let's just be realistic. So, all right, we'll see what we can do, and I'll reach out to the board.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other items to discuss? Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
All right, roll call vote. Berger?
Yes?
Blanchard, yes. Campanelli?
yes.
Troidel?
Yes.
Yankee?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned.
All right, thank you. Oh, they can't see me. I had to turn myself off there. There's